I smoothed the fabric of my navy dress, pressing away creases that existed only in my imagination. This was the sort of dress I'd always considered appropriate for family gatherings, understated enough that Marissa wouldn't roll her eyes, yet respectable enough to avoid looking slovenly. At 77, fashion trends had long ceased to concern me, but neatness remained important. Garrett had specified 7 o'clock for dinner. An hour remained. I surveyed my living room, where each object carried its own narrative. Here, a photograph from mine and James's golden anniversary celebration. There, young Garrett clutching his fishing rod beside his first catch. And over. There, Toby and Rebecca in their graduation regalia, silent chroniclers of a time when life seemed less complicated. My attention lingered on James's portrait. What would he advise now? 15 years since his passing, yet I still consulted him mentally. "Edith, don't permit others to wound you," he would say. James had possessed a gift for establishing boundaries, even with our own son. I, conversely, had never mastered that skill. The phone buzzed against the table. A message from Garrett. Smiling, I reached for my reading glasses, anticipating clarification about tonight's arrangements. Perhaps he was offering transportation to their new residence, though such gestures had grown rare lately. "Mom, apologies, but we can't make tonight. Marissa's hosting a work dinner. We'll reschedule for another evening." I reread the message. Something didn't align. Garrett had telephoned yesterday, insisting my presence was essential, mentioning some special announcement. I was scrutinizing the text again when my phone vibrated with a new notification. "You weren't invited to dinner. My wife doesn't want you there." My hand trembled. My heart contracted as though encased in frigid fingers. This couldn't be from Garrett, not from my son, yet there was his name, his number. I lowered myself slowly into the armchair, still gripping. The phone, as if releasing it, would sever my last connection to reality. Memories cascaded. Little Garrett clinging to my skirt on his kindergarten debut. Teenage Garrett sheepishly requesting advice about girls. Adult Garrett introducing Marissa to me, radiant with happiness. And now this message, cold, detached, exclusionary. Was this a sudden decision, or merely the first instance they'd chosen honesty? How many discussions about me had occurred behind closed doors? How many smiles had been counterfeit? How many invitations forced? My gaze fell upon a glossy brochure resting on the table, an advertisement for River Ridge Estates apartment complex, their new residence. A 3-story townhouse with river views and private dock, the house for which I'd provided a $120,000 down payment 6 months ago. "Mom, it's an investment in our future," Garrett had said. "A gathering place for family. Your corner, too." My corner. I smiled bitterly. Apparently that corner had just vanished. I recalled the day Garrett and I sat in the bank. The manager had regarded me with poorly concealed astonishment as I signed the paperwork. "Are you certain?" "Mrs. Wembley, this is a substantial sum." I'd been certain. James had left me comfortable means. Helping our son seemed right. Other investments had followed. A new car for Garrett, safer for traveling with children. Private school tuition for Toby. The boy has special learning requirements. The kitchen renovation Marissa coveted. She works tremendously hard. She deserves comfort. Each time I'd withdrawn my checkbook. Each time it felt justified. And my return? Infrequent phone calls, perfunctory holiday visits, and now this text. I rose slowly, approaching the secretary inherited from my mother. The top right drawer contained all financial documentation, meticulously organized folders with receipts, bank statements, checks. The folder labeled Garrett was thickest. I opened it, examining documents. Here, a $20,000 check for a business venture Garrett abandoned after 6 months. A receipt for Marissa's continuing education courses. bills for their previous home's roof repairs, Toby's car insurance. How much had I contributed over the years? How many times had I helped, supported, rescued? For what? To be barred from the doorstep of a house I'd financed. The phone vibrated again. I flinched, but this was different. Rebecca, my granddaughter. "Grandma, are you coming tonight? I've missed you." My hand hovered over the keyboard. Rebecca had always been different, genuine, caring. While her parents and brother forgot my existence, she made time to visit, call, inquire about my well-being. I typed slowly, "Sweetheart, it appears your parents prefer I stay home." I sent it. Seconds later came her reply. "What? Why?" Daddy said. "Yesterday, you absolutely had to be there." So Rebecca didn't know. I imagined her standing somewhere in that new house, perplexed. The house I'd paid for. My gaze returned to the folder. All these years, I'd believed I was purchasing love and respect. Instead, I'd merely been renting their time and attention, and the lease had apparently expired. I picked up my phone and dialed the bank. After several rings, a courteous female voice answered, "Good evening, Fayetteville Community Bank. How may I assist you?" "Good evening. This is Edith Wembley. I need to discuss some recurring payments from my account." "Certainly, Mrs. Wembley. I'll need to verify your identity first." While she listed security questions and I patiently responded, a plan crystallized in my mind. Clear, ruthless, fair. "Thank you for confirming, Mrs. Wembley. How may I help you?" "I'd like to cancel all automatic payments and transfers from all my accounts. Every single one." Brief pause. "All payments, Mrs. Wembley. You have quite a few." "Yes, all of them. And I also need to revoke the power of attorney granted to my son, Garrett Wembley." "I see." I detected slight confusion in her voice. "This is a significant change, Mrs. Wembley. Perhaps you should visit our branch office for a more detailed—" "I'll come tomorrow morning and sign necessary documents," I interrupted. "But I need the process initiated today. Is that possible?" Another pause. "Yes, we can temporarily suspend all payments pending your visit, but we'll require your signature for complete reversal." "Perfect. Suspend everything now." While she typed, I looked at James's photograph. "You were right, darling. Can't let people take advantage, even if they're your own children." "Ready, Mrs. Wembley. Temporary suspension activated. You have a total of—" She paused. 174 recurring payments and transfers. All are blocked pending your branch visit." 174. I hadn't realized there were so many. 174 ways I'd supported my son and his family. "Thank you. I'll be there when you open tomorrow." I disconnected and felt a strange liberation, as if a heavy backpack I'd carried for years had suddenly lifted from my shoulders. The phone vibrated again. Garrett. Rebecca must have contacted him. I didn't answer. Instead, I composed a brief message. "Then pay your own way, freeloaders." My finger froze above the send button. Was I prepared to turn this page? To destroy the fragile connection I'd sustained for so long with my money and patience? But hadn't they destroyed it first by denying me even basic respect? Hadn't they decided I was no longer necessary, not even in the house I'd financed? I pressed send, then powered off the phone. In my living room's quietness, I felt a strange calm. For the first time in years, I'd acted not for my son or his family, but for myself, and it was liberating. I walked to the closet and retrieved an old photo album. Flipping through pages of my life, my wedding to James, Garrett's birth, family vacations, celebrations, I realized that somewhere along the way, I'd lost myself, melted into others' needs, forgetting my own desires and dignity. James always said, "Edith, don't let anyone take you for granted." Even on his deathbed, he'd made me promise to care for myself as I cared for others. I hadn't kept that promise. Until today. I closed the album and returned it to the shelf. Then I removed the dress I'd worn for dinner and changed into my house robe. I made tea and retrieved a book I'd been meaning to read for ages but kept postponing due to endless family requests and obligations. Tomorrow would be a new day, a day when I'd begin a new chapter without the financial shackles binding me to people who valued neither my help nor myself. 174 payments. 174 reasons to move forward. I sipped my tea and opened the book, savoring the silence and freedom of choice. My phone remained off. My heart, for the first time in ages, beat steady and calm. Fayetteville Community Bank. Opened at 9, but I arrived 20 minutes early. The night had been surprisingly peaceful, the first time I'd slept without medication in months. Determination granted me strength. When doors opened, I was the first customer. The young woman behind the counter smiled welcomingly. "Good morning. How may I help you?" "I need to see Mrs. Howard," I replied. Linda Howard had worked here nearly 30 years, the person James and I always consulted. Minutes later, I sat in Linda's office. She'd changed little over the years. Same neat gray hair, same attentive eyes behind thin-rimmed glasses. "Edith, wonderful to see you." She shook my hand. "I was informed about yesterday's call. All 174 payments have been suspended as requested. Is something wrong?" I met her eyes directly. "I want to cancel them all permanently and remove Garrett's access to my accounts." Linda removed her glasses and cleaned them with a tissue, a gesture I'd noticed when she was contemplating something important. "Edith, we've known each other for years. Are you certain? This is rather radical." "Absolutely certain." She nodded and began typing. "Very well. I'll prepare all necessary paperwork. This will take time. You have many automatic payments." While the system generated documents, Linda pulled out a thick folder. "Here are printouts of all your recurring transactions for the past year. You might want to review them to ensure nothing important is missed." I opened the folder. Pages and pages of statements. Each line, money flowing from my pocket into my family's. First receipt, monthly mortgage. Payment for Garrett and Marissa's new house, $3,800. I remembered the day Garrett brought me to see that house. "Mom, this is perfect for our family, and there's a first-floor guest room with private bath for you. No stairs to climb. A guest room I'd never slept in. A house they wouldn't let me enter." Next receipt, Marissa's car insurance, a premium SUV she'd claimed was necessary for working with high-level clients. $850 quarterly. I continued leafing through. Country club membership, so Marissa could make business connections. Private dental clinic bills because Toby had special bite requirements. Rebecca's college tuition, the only money I didn't regret. Each receipt resurrected a conversation. A request, sometimes even tears. "Mom, we're financially stretched right now." "Grandmother, this is the latest model. Without it, I'll stand out negatively." "Edith, you don't want your grandson developing complexes, do you?" Receipt after receipt, page after page, a map of my naivety and their greed. "Here's the paperwork to cancel all payments," Linda's voice returned me to reality, "and the power of attorney revocation form. Please read carefully and sign if you agree." I accepted the pen and signed without hesitation. "Edith." Linda lowered her voice. "If you need assistance, any advice—" "It's all right, Linda," I smiled. For the first time in ages, everything truly is all right. Exiting the bank, I felt lighter, as if I'd shed an invisible weight that had dragged me down for years. Next stop, my attorney's office. Francis Whitaker had worked with our family since James's time. His beard had grayed longer, his glasses grown thicker, but the shrewd gleam in his eyes remained. "Mrs. Wembley, what a pleasant surprise." He indicated a chair. "What can I do for you?" I want to change my will, I said calmly, confidently, and establish a living trust to protect my assets. Francis raised an eyebrow. May I ask what prompted this decision? Family circumstances have changed. I didn't elaborate. I need to know how I can legally and safely manage my finances without interference from my son or his family. He nodded without further questions. There are several options. Let's discuss each. We spent the next hour discussing irrevocable trusts, financial powers of attorney, contingent will provisions. Francis took notes and explained legal intricacies. I felt strangely empowered making these decisions. When we finished, my phone showed 15 missed calls from Garrett, 7 from Marissa, 3 from Toby, none from Rebecca. Shall I have the paperwork ready by week's end? Francis asked, walking me to the door. The sooner the better, I replied. And Francis, thank you. He nodded understandingly. You know, Edith, James always said you were stronger than you appeared. I'm glad to see he was right. I exited the office with a slight smile. James always saw through me. En route home, I stopped at the supermarket. For the first time in ages, I purchased groceries solely for myself, not considering Garrett's preferences or Toby's favorite snacks. It was strange but pleasant to think only of my own desires. A surprise awaited at home. Rebecca sat on the porch, arms wrapped around her knees. She jumped up when she saw my car. Grandma! She rushed over, helping with bags. I've been calling all day. Why didn't you answer? I looked carefully at my granddaughter. Rebecca resembled me in youth, same brown hair, same stubborn crease between her eyebrows when worried. I've had a busy day, dear. I unlocked the door. Come in and tell me what's happened. We entered the kitchen. Rebecca sat at the table, fingers drumming nervously on the countertop while I sorted groceries. Grandma, what's happening? Dad's panicking. He says you've blocked all payments and won't answer your phone. I calmly retrieved the kettle. It's true, I've decided to terminate your family's financial support. But why? I heard genuine bewilderment in her voice. Did something happen? I poured water into the kettle and set it on the stove before answering. Your father canceled my invitation to last night's family dinner. Said your mother didn't want me there. Rebecca turned pale. What? No. Dad's been saying all week how important it was that you come. I have the message. I pulled out my phone and showed her. Rebecca covered her mouth with her hand as she read. Oh my God, I didn't know. I swear. Her eyes filled with tears. That's terrible, Grandma. I don't understand how he could... That was the final straw, Rebecca. I placed a teacup before her. For years, I've paid for everything from your house to Toby's tennis lessons. And throughout that time, I felt used. Yesterday, I received confirmation. Rebecca sat silent, staring into her cup. Then she looked up. You know, I've always seen how they take advantage of your kindness, especially Mom. I tried talking to Dad, but he always defended her. I nodded. Deep down, I'd always known Rebecca understood more than she revealed. What happens now? She asked quietly. I mean, they have many payments, loans. They'll have to manage independently. I shrugged. They're adults with good jobs. Garrett's a building inspector. Your mother's a successful realtor. They'll be fine. The desk phone rang again. Garrett, I muted it. Aren't you going to answer? Rebecca asked. Not today. I shook my head. I need time to process my thoughts, and he needs time to realize the consequences of his words. Rebecca studied me thoughtfully. You know, Grandma, I've never seen you so determined. I smiled weakly. I haven't seen myself like this in years. We finished our tea in comfortable silence. When Rebecca prepared to leave, she hugged me tighter than usual. Are you sure you're okay? Want me to stay? I'm perfectly fine, dear. I stroked her cheek. Go ahead. Don't worry about me. She nodded but paused at the door. I'm not taking sides in this conflict, Grandma. You understand that? Of course, I smiled. This is between me and your parents. It doesn't involve you. After Rebecca departed, silence enveloped the house again. I checked the mail, a notice about a failed charge on Toby's credit card. That quickly? Apparently my grandson was living at his credit limit. I set the letter aside and settled in the chair, by the window. My phone continued vibrating with incoming messages and calls, but I paid no attention. Instead, I retrieved an old photo album and opened it randomly. A picture from 20 years ago. James and me, young Garrett and Marissa, little Toby and Rebecca at a picnic. Everyone smiling. When had things changed? When had support become obligation? When had love transformed into expectation of financial assistance? I closed the album and approached the hallway mirror. The woman reflected there appeared tired, but something new resided in her eyes, a determination I hadn't seen in years. Time to remember who you are, Edith Wembley, I told my reflection. The doorbell interrupted my thoughts. My heart jumped. Garrett? I peered through the peephole. Lorene Campbell, an old friend, stood on the doorstep with a basket. Edith! She hugged me as soon as I opened the door. I called, but you didn't answer. Thought I'd stop by and make sure. You were all right. Come in, Lorene. I let her pass. I'm sorry, I turned my phone off. Just a little family emergency. Lorene set the basket on the table, homemade cookies and a jar of jam. Family problems? She looked at me carefully. Marissa again? Lorene had never concealed her opinion of my daughter-in-law. Predator, she called her. Garrett, this time. I briefly recounted yesterday's message and my decision. Lorene listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took my hand. At last, she exclaimed, so relieved I couldn't help smiling. I'm sorry, Edith, but I've watched them exploit you. For years. How many times I wanted to say enough, but it wasn't my place. I know, I sighed. You were right all along. I just didn't want to see. So what now? Lorene asked, pouring us tea. Garrett must be in a panic. Let him panic, I shrugged. I need time to process my feelings, and they need time to realize what they've lost. We talked with Lorene through the evening. For the first time in ages, I didn't feel like a mother or grandmother, but simply a woman conversing with a friend. It was liberating. By the time Lorene left, darkness had fallen. I finally decided to check my phone. 37 missed calls. 23 messages. I began, reviewing them, grimacing at the increasingly desperate and demanding tone. Mom, what's happening? Why isn't the mortgage payment going through? Edith, it's Marissa. We need to talk. Urgent. Grandma, my card's been blocked. I'm stuck downtown with no money. The last text from Garrett came just 10 minutes ago. Mom, I'm on my way to see you. We need to talk. I felt my muscles tense. Was I ready for this conversation? But there seemed no choice. I extinguished the living room light and walked to the kitchen, put the kettle on, retrieved my finest cup, the one I used only on special occasions. Today was a special occasion, the day Edith Wembley finally said no. I heard a car pull up and looked out the window. Garrett alone, without Marissa. Unusual. She typically controlled all important conversations. The doorbell rang. Signal for the confrontation to begin. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and went to open the door.